What are the similarities and differences between coaching in business and coaching in sports? Are we taking enough time to reflect on our actions, our strengths, and the areas we have for improvement? Let's find out what Myles Downey has to say in helping people understand who they are as leaders, building up their willpower, and having that insatiable desire for learning. Hello and welcome to the Practical Leadership Podcast, where I interview great leaders and try to extract their wisdom and experience for you to learn from, and hopefully avoid making their mistakes. Check out practical-leadership.academy because you want to help your new managers succeed with hybrid or remote working. Myles Downey, thank you very much for joining me.
Great pleasure.
Accomplished tennis player, C-suite leadership coach, author, consultant, man about town. I'm doing you a disservice, undoubtedly. Would you please introduce yourself to both my listeners?
Well, and good afternoon, morning, or evening, depending on when you're listening, those two listeners. I've been in the world of coaching since, well, probably there wasn't a world of coaching. So I've written about it in a number of books, which are sell well and are I get nice feedback on. But mostly it's what I do is I'm out there working with people who in some cases lead large businesses, some smaller businesses, some business units, but aside. And I do something that I call leader performance coaching. I'm there to help people succeed. And because I'm quite good at that, and because I've got a bit of a reputation around it, and because I trained coaches, I also get to do odd jobs like work with Eddie Jones and his coaches at England Rugby. So it's there are those bits that are kind of the really fun bits that get mixed in with it all. So
when you're talking to the English rugby coaches and you're talking to the C-suite execs of some highfalutin company, what are the similarities and differences between the two?
It's quite a great question, and I think you should have given me about a week's warning.
Sorry.
No. It's fine as long as people are patient with me. There are similarities, but they're fairly profound in the sense that they're buried deep within the person. So that most people who adopt a leadership position, and when you're a coach to the England rugby team or part of that team of coaches, you are leading other usually younger men, and most people when they show up as a leader don't really know who the hell is showing up. They're kind of a conglomeration of people they've admired or worked with in the past. So kind of the sins of the fathers being visited upon the children, and then whatever they've picked up at whatever training they may or may not have done. And then there's how they respond in the moment. One of the things that I do with leaders and with people in senior coaching roles is I help them understand who they are. And if you have a profound sense of who you are, the confidence that comes from that, because what you do then is an expression of who you are rather than some damn trick that you've been taught by an inept trainer in some small windowless room somewhere. So that's a commonality. I work with leaders to understand what their unique genius as a leader is, and coaches to understand what their unique genius as a coach is, as the foundation point of what they then go and express in the world. Forgive those last few words; they're overly flowery. But that's what's common. What's different, of course, is that in sport, the world of sport, the response to what you do is immediate and before you. Often in the world of business, the response is months or even years down the road. So it's more difficult to course correct if you're a leader in business.
I think it's one of the Psalms, isn't it? It's Psalms or Proverbs, probably Proverbs. A man who's wise in his own eyes, somebody actually who knows themselves. It's know thyself.
Lies in the lovely line. Yeah. Brilliant line.
So who shows up? I mean, I've always said this amalgam of people who you've had yourself as managers, and typically people's first impressions last, right? And their first impressions of managers are typically their first managers, and their first managers are typically in their first management role, because who do you get to lead the first people you have in the company but the most junior managers? And what's that impression? It's crap.
And not only that, I'm going to cut in, is that 71% of people who are given a first job in the UK of managing others receive no training. No training.
It's as low as that. I thought it'd been much higher. 71%. I think I've seen that stat somewhere. I love that.
Receive no training. So, only I got to do the maths, 29% to get any training.
I'm gonna take socks and toes off.
Yeah, no,
I can't go past 10 without taking my socks off.
Yeah.
71% of new managers get no training. I'm not surprised by that. I mean, a big thing that I tried to aim this around is called the Practical Leadership Podcast, right? It's the idea that we can bring something practical to leaders, typically, who are dumped in this, either because founders of new companies or whatever, and all of a sudden they've hired 27 people, and rather than being an engineer, they have to manage and lead. Or they've been dumped, as you say. Congratulations, you're promoted. To what? Managing that team over there.
But they hate me.
Or I used to be one of the plebs, and now I'm one of the supreme beings. How am I supposed to manage my pals? Or. All these things. Yeah. Okay. Who shows up? Who shows up?
Yeah.
How do you... You talk about training coaches.
Yeah.
How do you dig that out? What's your magic sauce for helping people to understand who they are? Self-reflection.
Well, it's kind of now a well-worked process, a set of questions with a little exercise stuck in the middle of it, and obviously it's never stuck to rigidly. But the questions are things like, as a leader, what do you enjoy doing? Some of them are very simple. They get a bit more complex. As a leader, what difference do you think you make? As a leader, what are you becoming? As a leader, what do people come to you for? So there's a set of questions that I've got, and then I do a little bit of magic, which is I get people to, as much as possible, relax, probably close their eyes, and I, in that kind of more relaxed mental state, I take them on a little journey where they remember a time when they were with a team or in a leadership position. So it could be at any point in your life. It could be back in if you went to university or exactly. So any moment where you inadvertently or otherwise ended up being in a leadership position, and it worked. And I get them to go back to that in their memory, and I get them to picture it. And then I do this trick. I get that image of you in your mind leading to disappear, and have that be replaced by a symbol of you as a leader. And people don't believe it's going to happen, but every time the imagination, their intuition gives them an image, a symbol that's often significantly profound. And what I've done is, it's a very simple trick. I've taken them away from their kind of rational minds and their thinking and the filters they have to exclude useful information. And because the imagination just goes straight to the point. And it gives them something fresh and new. And then you pull all that together into some kind of a statement about who they are as a leader. I'll give you an example. I worked with a guy about 7 or 8 months ago, very talented, younger man, but so in his middle 30s, I would guess. And he was in sales, very, very successful, went to headhunted into a bigger company with a more diverse team, blah, blah, blah. You get that kind of picture. Did an exercise very similar to what we've described. And the image that came to him, to his surprise, was of his school days when there was a very good teacher who happened to wear a jacket, with a kind of a tartan cross, a tweed jacket. That's the word I'm looking for. Excuse me. And this image of the tweed jacket came to him, and he was there sitting with his eyes closed, and his eyes just opened, and he looked at me and said, "That's the essence of it. I need to teach, and I need to understand that each person needs to be taught different things." And it was just like, so it was like, and in a year's time, we may do that exercise, and it may be something completely different because he'll have moved on into a different part of his life. So we change. So we need to account for that. But it was absolutely profound. So when he goes into the place of work, he goes in, if he panics or whatever, I'd say, no, I'm a teacher. Breathe. What do I do? It's clear. So once you have the clarity of the identity, the beauty is that then you ask yourself, so what does that look like? And that gets you to strategies, tactics, and behaviors. Mm. So, and once you know what those things are, it's, relax. You know what to do. And suddenly you become a point of clarity in all the nonsense.
Yeah. I like your framing. I like the framing of, what do you enjoy doing? Which is always my triage question. I was talking to somebody yesterday, so what's that coaching them, right?
Yeah.
And if you're listening, you know who you are. And he was saying, he's doing really, really well. #1 sales bod. super, super guy, really empathetic, really wonderful human being, but asking, I've got to become a leader to get on. And I was thinking, really question that. Really question that. Because if you don't really enjoy the people part, number one, as a sales guy, you might not earn as much as a sales leader, but you've got to really burn for the whole making people better. What do you enjoy doing? And then what do you enjoy doing? What difference do you think you'll make? What is that difference? Are you going to be the pain in the bum that micromanages? Are you going to lead people to a destination where they wouldn't get on their own? Because that's leadership.
Yeah.
What are you becoming your journey?
Yeah.
Why do people come to you? If they don't come to you, that's a question. That's part of your when you get there. Nobody's coming to you. There's a reason. Right? That's lovely. That's a very profound piece. I do like that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you
and infinitely practical. That's the fun of some of this stuff, is that you have to go to a different place that's profound, but actually it comes down into what I'm going to do tomorrow.
I've studied hypnotism and persuasion and influence for many, many years, and that's a hypnotic metaphor, right? So that's the definition of what you just described there. I was scribbling it down actually as you're going. It's a hypnotic metaphor. You're actually putting people into, it's not actually hypnosis, although it kind of is. It's delving into that subconscious where you are allowing yourself to remove those filters and access what you know is already there. And I think that's a big part of coaching.
It's the essence of coaching.
I don't need to know the answers. In fact, I can't. In fact, sometimes it's even better if I don't know the answers.
Yeah. Yeah. No, by the way, so just so you know, I take that to such extremes that, in fact, in July, I'm running a program where I'll take people onto a tennis court, because it's true, tennis is a thing that I love. But the point of it is, what's going on is I'm taking people onto a tennis court and I'm giving them some principles that are about how people learn. So there's a distinction here between teaching and learning, and most coaching that we see out there is teaching. Yes. Or instructing, whichever way you like to do it. But if I put people on a tennis court, 99.9% of them can't teach tennis. So what I'm doing is I'm putting them in a place where they are reliant, for there to be a successful lesson, they are reliant on the other person's innate capacity to learn. Because let's face it, nobody taught you how to walk. So, it is just, I mean, I've had people in tears by lunchtime when they suddenly see that without being clever or smart or insightful, but just by paying attention to people and putting in place a little bit of structure, people learn for themselves. And it's, for many people, profoundly moving.
There's a thread that goes back to your knowing yourself and appreciating how people learn there. I can sense that the way that you know yourself, I think, is by being interested and in others, and appreciating people around you for who they are, because a part of knowing others is by knowing yourself. And there's this circular connection here. If you want to understand humanity, you start by looking at yourself.
That's great. That's absolutely, I've never said that, and it rings absolutely true. Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
You wrote a book, Enabling Genius, available at all good bookstores, and the link in the description right now. Enabling Genius. And you did a bit of research behind that.
Yeah.
You want to tell us what that means?
Well, so that process that I described, getting people to the tennis court, that's the foundation of what I do. I help people use their own resources, their imagination, their intelligence, whatever else, to make progress, and that gives them confidence in themselves and competence beyond me. So I don't have to be around. That doesn't make dependency. But I also have kind of 30 plus years of experience of coaching, and what happened was about 10 years ago, less than that, but about that, one or two of my clients at the same time were given really difficult jobs. And what they realized was that in order to get there, they had to go well beyond what they were currently delivering, currently performing. They had to kind of reach into the outer edges of their potential, if you like. And that was the request to me. So, how the hell do I help them explore those outer edges safely? Because it goes beyond what I had some inklings. So I pulled together a group of about 20 people that I knew and loved. And we spent about a year looking at the literature, but also people that we were attracted to who had demonstrated signs of greatness in their life in one way or other. And we asked, and the game was, could we find a pattern in on their journeys to greatness, this sounds terribly cliched, but could we find a pattern? And it came down to 4 things. And the first was what we've just been talking about, understanding identity, who you are, your unique individual genius. At this point, I got to say what I mean by genius. See, it's when you say to somebody they have potential, their eyes glaze over and the words just blow in one ear and out the other. It doesn't register anymore. It's kind of, yeah, I've got it. If you say you've got genius, they go, what? And some people get really cross. They don't, those guys who wear kind of blue serge blazers with buttons on and they're kind of president of the local tennis club. They don't like that, people stepping out of line and expressing their genius. So they get cross because you see, essentially society is supposed to suppress you and make you compliant. So it gets some people really cross. But what I'm saying that genius is it's the expression of your potential. It's the embodiment of your potential. So your genius is the embodiment of your potential. And once you've made that real, once you can touch it and mold it, then you can do something with your potential. If you just leave it as this abstract thing, nothing changes. But if you say, on the tennis court, I have my unique individual genius. It's really clear. Big Zen cat. I hit the ball incredibly hard. I hit it deep into your backhand because I'm left-handed. So that's the big bit. The Zen bit is about how I manage myself. And by the way, that I discovered something a while back was that I was keeping this very solemn Zen-like face, which was incongruent with which was happening inside because I was giggling because I was having so much fun playing tennis. So I started giggling I didn't start giggling, I just let it out. And cat is kill it, pounce. So I'm not willing to run around the back of the court hitting the ball back and forth all day. It's a waste of time. I'll get in and I'll get myself into a position where I can hit a winner within 3 shots. So it's like, I stand on the court. I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. So again, so the genius bit is really important to understand. That sense, that confidence that comes from knowing who you are, and the strategy that comes from it. So identity, genius. The other was will. So extraordinary will to continue on through pain, to persevere over the years. And what most people don't fully appreciate, that is to say, they understand it somewhere in their minds, but not as a working everyday principle, is that will is something you can build. You can increase the level of the quotient of will that you have, and that can carry you through difficult times towards your goals. And then the third key element is mindset, building a mindset for success. And again, that is something you can build. And the fourth thing is they're all held together in these people who do extraordinary things, who demonstrate greatness. They're all held together by an insatiable desire for learning. So they continually learn and develop from one moment to the next, try things out, experiment, whatever else. So it was those 4 things. So that then meant that I could go into my clients and say, okay, guys, let's really push. So yeah.
You said there, point 2 is that you can build your will. Now, my sense of willpower is that it is in the moment, perhaps. I'm just thinking this out loud. You'll bear with me. In the moment, I think it's finite. You have the metaphor of a bucket of willpower and a ladle, and you're ladling it out and you're using it as you go. And when it's done, you just need to wait until it fills back up again. It's not finite. But perhaps you're saying you can train it to make the bucket bigger.
Yeah. I mean, yes, that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. So by drawing in other things into it, by understanding that we have a tendency as human beings to try and reduce things to just one element, the answer to the problem, the one thing. And most things are complex and multiple. So my image of will is like a braided rope. It's a whole number of things that are woven together that make something much stronger than the collective individual strands. And so there are things in there like and some of these are small things. There was I think his name was P-U-G-H, the guy who swam all 7 oceans. That involved him swimming in at the poles, both poles. Where he was subject to threats from killer whales. Apart from the extreme cold, you jump into water that cold, and the body's instinctive response is to draw in oxygen. You do that when you're in water, you drown. So he had to complete. So it's the training he went through. But one element of the way he built his will to persist was out of his Englishness. So I do a similar thing out of my Irishness. It's part of and he played music as he went through some of his swims, he invoked his father, who I think had been in the English army, the British Army. So he that was one of his strands. Another strand was that he was doing something great for humanity because he was trying to bring attention to the state of the oceans. Another one was having clear goals about where he was headed and what his direction of travel was. So you can braid together multiple things to make that will stronger. And then there are exercises you can do. A guy called Assagioli, who was the father of psychosynthesis, describes visualization exercises where you imagine your hand drawing on a blackboard numbers and trying to kind of in chalk on a blackboard and just increasing the span of numbers you can retain in your mind's eye. But the act of doing that actually builds will and resilience doing it. So there are just so many things you can do that most people don't know about.
I think training your mind is one of the most impactful and just straightforwardly damned easiest things you can do.
Yeah.
Really easy. It doesn't take much. You're not having to try and learn how to run a marathon. I mean, I got somebody the other day, I had them meditate. He said he promised he'd do it 3 times over 3 days. Like he sent me a text message and just, it was like, wow, just that.
Good.
Good. It's for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's all it was. And it's just the difference in the clarity of, he had a very busy mind. He couldn't focus all that stuff. But look, just do this wee thing, wee thing. Day 1, day 2, day 3, the difference as well. Because we're not used to it. And was it 80% of the results of anything come from the first 20% of effort? Yeah. So maybe I'll come to a tennis lesson one day. My son's getting far too good. He's only 9 as well.
But it goes back to this whole thing about our education trains us to jump. I used the word compliance earlier. Trains us to jump through hoops, and most of what we learn at some level is feck all use. And it's forgotten afterwards. Okay, you learn some things about how to study maybe, but you don't learn really important things like meditation, how to pay attention, how to concentrate. Most people have never been taught how to concentrate. It's a skill, and it not only is a skill, it's probably the most important skill you possess.
Learning is a skill. Nobody actually. My kids. I relate a lot of things back to my children. Yeah, and it's a wonderful reflective thing to watch your children develop and grow over time. And you're thinking, that's why life is like it is, because kids come and this is how they discover things. My daughter's going through SATs here in England just now. They're the most pointless set of nonsense exams you can imagine. It bears no resemblance to nothing they're ever going to do, and they're no use, and they're not recorded. And the only people who it matters to are the teachers in the school who get up or down, right? So, and the kids go through all this stress. I've been telling my daughter she can basically go on holiday. I don't give a shit. And she does. Yeah. So hopefully she can. But the whole, we don't teach people how to learn. They go to school, but they don't learn how to learn. Nobody teaches them how to learn. You don't learn by rote, like you said. You use the autonomic handwriting things, these mental techniques. They're so simple. Yeah. I tell you, we should do a session on that. Here, top 5 ways of learning.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Get a bit ranty there in old age.
No. I think it's your podcast. Yeah. But I mean, it's what we're touching on is the thing that is the reason that I got into the coaching world in the first place, which was that the thing that upsets me the most, and I mean physically upsets me, is seeing people wasting their abilities and not expressing themselves. Or the thing that I hate even more than that is others who stop people expressing themselves, because it's the most precious resource there is. Your genius.
I like that. Your genius, your resource of your genius. Genius is the expression or the embodiment of your potential.
Yeah.
That's lovely. Genius, your will, your mindset, and your desire for learning.
Yeah.
I think that's a fairly good recipe.
Yeah.
It's a fairly good recipe.
And it's simple enough. You can some of the stuff we read during the course of that project, was the kind of the more academic stuff. It's like, okay, so somebody enjoys writing academic stuff and some of it's useful, but most of it's not applicable for the everyday person. The hope was to do something that was clear, axiomatic, obvious, usable.
Is there something that you might like to thank the young Miles for doing that got you where you are?
I'm brought up in Holy Catholic Ireland, for the most part, a good boy, compliant and whatever else. But I think there was a part of me that knew that game was complete nonsense. I almost ended up an architect. I did end up an architect. I sat in the office. And what the young Miles did was kind of not believe. And one day the other Miles and their paths crossed. And I realized that this, life is too long to sit in an architect's office doing drawings of window details or something. And I, it was going to take me 15 years to be a partner in that show. And that may be for some people. If that's what you're after, then go for it. Don't. But it wasn't for me. So I think that naivety and innocence went hand in hand with a kind of a strange courage. And yes, if I had the opportunity to say thank you, that's what I'd thank that innocent for that.
Strange courage, naivety, and innocence of young Miles.
Yeah. I didn't know I was going to say that, but it's true.
It goes back to the kids. It's approach life like a child with the curiosity, the passion, the intensity of a child.
Yeah.
And approach other people like that as well. We went on holiday and my kids were going up to other kids and saying, "Do you want to play?" And the other kid would say, "Hola, lo siento, no habla inglés." And it's like, "That's great, I've got a ball." Problem solved. United Nations, eat your heart out.
Yeah.
Totally way. Where can people find you, Miles?
Very easily. My name Miles is spelled with a Y. And if you Google Myles Downey, you find me pretty damn quickly, it would seem. But I've got a website called www.milesdowney.com, and you can contact me at miles@milesdowney.com. And I love hearing from people. So yeah,
milesdowney.com. Thank you very much indeed for joining.
It's been a real pleasure, Paul. Thank you.
That's a wrap. Thank you for joining me today. Your homework is to leave your 5-star review, and please, any comments you have, you really help me to improve every day, and it also helps people to discover me online. You should check out practical-leadership.academy because you want to help your new managers succeed with hybrid or remote working.